Everybody, it's Anthony Brogdon. It's your main man, and boy, I got a lady on the channel today. Ooh, you're gonna really like this. It's a story that is gonna blow your mind, and it's in her family. Ancestors, many years ago, decades ago, hundreds of years ago, so to speak, I guess. Yeah, hundreds. And she know the story. And let me tell you what happened was, oh, hold on, let me do it before. I'm Anthony Brogdon. I forgot to tell you who I am. Let me tell you now. Oh, man, this is right here. And what happened was, I went to a conference in Philadelphia, and this guy, Rick Murphy, he's an icon in his own right. He started this organization. I'm sure here with other people, but he's the spearhead of it all. And they know people who of ancestors go back to George Washington and the Revolutionary War and stuff like that. This sister is one of them. See, now check it out. So what happened was I'm sitting there at the table and she's sitting next to me and I'm, friendly guy. So I said, hey, who are you? She get to telling me her story. I said, Dad, come on my show, ma'am. Please. I ain't joking. I want y'all to hear this. It's an amazing story. So she said, well, okay, let's, gave me information. I'm sure she vetted me. You know what I mean? You got to vet me. But I passed the test because of the other over 600 people who've come on the show. It's amazing. I'm a better person because of strong inspirations. So hit the subscribe button. It's free. Hit the like button because there is no love button. Hit the notifications bell so you get a ding, a shot, a smoke signal, something to let you know there's new content.
That's right.
And you in them classrooms, them teachers, if you're in front of your family, and it's YouTube, so you can move the cursor where you want. You can get to the heart of the information, all right, real easily. And you're gonna you can get to the heart of what she's gonna say, but all of this is gonna be good, my friends. And then tell somebody about strong inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself. That ain't right.
That's
No,
right.
it's like you got a pair of shoes that you found on sale and don't know where nobody went know where you got them from. That ain't cool. Well, you can do your shoes like that because they might get the same pair, but not this show. Let other people hear about it. And I'm going around the country. Like I said, I was in Philly where she was. I had a book signing that, oh man, we had a decent crowd show up on a Saturday morning and I blew them away. I'm on my way to the original Gullah Geechee Festival down in Beaufort, South Carolina.
Ooh,
I got a book signing down there. And I'm like, I'm leaving tomorrow. And it all that, I first excerpt from it on the show, but I can't wait. I like that Gullah Geechee thing. And I've interviewed several people, like go down the list of the Gullah Geechee people that I've interviewed. Go down the list of people who found out that they and this is one of the instances, the great grandfather, he fought on the behalf of the British against America because he said, hey, I want my freedom. The British promised that. They lost. And he ended up, his family in Nova Scotia, Canada. Mm-hmm. That's a unique dynamic. But you ain't free over here, so what the heck, right? And there's others like that. I interviewed a lady who she talks about Harriet Tubman having to end up in Canada, a town called St. Catherine. Mm-hmm. And her great grandfather was Harriet's minister when she got there.
Wow.
And the church is still standing today in St. Catherine, Canada, which is just across the water from Buffalo. I got that on the show. And it's stuff like that. And I'm telling you, you're going to like this one. Oh, this lady got good personality and everything, my friends. So do that. I'm a filmmaker, everybody. This is my documentary. It's called Business in the Black, The Rise of Black Business in America. I took it to over 40 cities across America, and it's still going. It's a few years old now, but it's still relevant. Slaves who went to college, slaves who own businesses, and so much more, and streaming on Amazon. So you can watch it on Amazon. And then I went one step further and I wrote a book, Boom Shakalaka. And the book is so
I love
good
it.
that if you don't learn nothing new, I give your money back. You ever heard of a book with a money back guarantee? Boom, here it is. I'm
Boom
that confident.
shakalaka.
It's over 200 facts, similar to the documentary, but more
Mm-hmm.
stuff in here. So go to this to learn where I'm speaking and about how to get you and where to get the book on my website, businessintheblack.net. Just go there, my friends.
Okay.
Businessintheblack.net. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. It's my favorite word. In my world, strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, nobility, and grace. And that is my introduction to the Strong Soul Sister on the channel today. Come on, lady, introduce yourself. Let's get it on.
Okay, now, so my name is Donna A. Porawski. I was born in Buffalo, New York, and I was raised in Trenton, New Jersey. And I went to Catholic school all my life. I graduated from Notre Dame High School, which is in Lawrence Township. I've been a nurse for over, 40 some years. I retired in 2017 and I started researching on ancestry in 2015.
Okay,
And
let me
what's
stop you
really
there. Let me stop. You
okay,
know,
okay,
disrespect. And you kind of alluded because this is what I always do, and I told you this is what I
okay,
do. We'll find a little bit about you. You gave some, but I want to ask a couple more questions on that same
okay,
note. In
okay.
Buffalo, did you grow up in the black neighborhood?
I did not grow up in Buffalo. I was not raised in Buffalo.
Okay.
I was my grandparents raised me, and I went there when I was 3 months old. I stayed in Trenton. I was raised in Trenton, New Jersey,
Oh, in
from the
Trenton, New
time I was
Jersey.
3 years old
Okay.
and up until through my adult life in New
Okay.
Jersey.
Now, what's
And
Trenton like? Were you in the black neighborhood in
oh,
Trenton?
absolutely. Now, what's really interesting because in Trenton, New Jersey, you got West Trenton, East Trenton, North Trenton, and South Trenton.
Right.
So when I was in Trenton, it was the neighborhood. There were blacks, but it was originally white people,
Oh,
Caucasian people that
really?
lived there.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, the white people started moving out, blacks started moving in, and then the neighborhood that I lived in was like sort of like a little Italian neighborhood. And then behind my neighborhood, like two blocks over, there was a section called Chambersburg. That was the Italian neighborhood. And you did not go in Chambersburg. If
Yeah,
you
I was
went in
gonna ask. Yeah,
Chambersburg,
really.
yeah, you didn't go over there. You had to be out by nightfall
Okay.
because blacks were not allowed over there. So I was raised up on East State Street by my grandfather. My grandfather's name was William. They called him Bill. His last name was Winston. And he was the first black appointed police officer back in, I think he was appointed in the late 30s or early 40s. He was like 25 when he went on the police force. And he retired in 1974. During his time being a police officer, he became a detective. So he also had 5 children, and one of his children was a female. Her name was Ethel Collins. Aunt Ethel wanted to be a policewoman when she grew up. So she went down to the police station, and they like, hey, we don't have any women police officers, yet black female police officers. So they made a position for her, and she became the first black female meter maid that went around on the little scooters and giving everybody tickets. Now,
Okay.
so what's really interesting about her, she wasn't even that was her job, right? An appointed job, but she was ticketing everything. She didn't care if you were the mayor, the senator, the governor, whatever. She
Okay.
gave people tickets. And then she was also married to a gentleman named Linwood Collins, and he was the first black fireman in Trenton, New Jersey. So that those doors open up to other individuals to come onto the police force and the
Yeah.
meter maids, and for women and for the black firemen. So
Okay.
now, so she passed It's been a year ago this month. So during that time at the funeral, we were also told, the family, that they're going to make a street named either Collins, Winston, I'm not sure, but they're trying to, change the name of a street to represent one of these people. The Winston family, the Collins family.
Oh,
So yeah, so I'm very proud about that. And
yes.
then in the 90s, my uncle, his name was Charles Winston. He was the son of Bill Winston, the police officer. And one of our family members had passed. So a lot of us was at the funeral, we were having breakfast, and he proceeded to tell us about Prince William Whipple.
Okay, before we get there, hold on. I know
Okay.
that's the hit of the story, but I'm
Okay.
gonna stay
Okay.
on you just a tad. So you
Okay.
grew up in that neighborhood. Did you have white friends?
I did. So this is the deal. So I went to Catholic school all my life, and I went kindergarten. I went to Lady Vine Shepherd, which was, at that time, it was all black. So I went to kindergarten there. And from what I understand, at one time, Lady Vine Shepherd had white nuns, and they were complaining they wanted black nuns, and they got black nuns. So anyway, the school eventually closed down, but the church and the school is still there. They use the church for
Okay,
different
okay,
functions. So my mom took me out of St. Lady Vine Shepherd, and I went to St. Joseph School, which is an Irish school, and it's Catholic, and it went from first grade to eighth grade, and it was mixed. We had blacks and whites in our class. Now, what's really interesting, there was another Catholic school that my mother wanted me to go to. It was over the bridge. It was named St. Hedwig's, but they did not accept black people. It was an all Polish school, I guess, for all whites. So blacks were not allowed to go there. So I went to Notre Dame, which is an Irish school, which is also run by the Sisters of Mercy, which the Sisters of Mercy also had a St. Mary's High School and a St. Mary's Elementary School. And it's so interesting because my mother, Elizabeth, went to St. Mary's. And when I went to St. Joseph, my uniform was the exact same uniform that she had when she
oh,
was
I
in
love
school.
it. I love it.
So I graduated from excuse me, from St. Joseph. I wanted to be a nun,
Oh,
Yeah, I wanted to
really?
be a
Okay,
sister.
let me ask you this. Let me ask you
Yeah.
this. Growing up in the Catholic Church,
Oh.
there's different protocols and things like that. What are some of the protocols that you had
Oh.
to deal with? And
Oh.
and then let me say, and as a black person, did you understand them, or did they infringe upon your being able to express your blackness in some respects? You know what I'm
Well,
asking now?
what this is really was really interesting about this. So, in my family, we have Caucasian people in our family. We have different nationalities. We're like the United Nations. So I never encountered racism going to school. Once I became a nurse, I did. But going to school, I did not. So I just looked at people as people.
Let me ask you this: Did
Mhm.
you did they talk about Black history? Were you
No,
able to
I'm gonna
be
get to
black?
no, no. Matter of fact, I didn't like history because I found it boring. It wasn't until I became an adult that I really enjoyed history. But when I went to Notre Dame, now this is interesting. So when I graduated from eighth grade, you had a choice. If you were going to go to a Catholic school, you had St. Anthony, St. Mary's, or Notre Dame. Well, I had heard that St. Mary's was closing, which eventually did. And I didn't want to go to St. Anthony. Now it's known as McCorskin. So I chose to go to Notre Dame, and then I chose St. Mary's as my first option, just in case they didn't close, but they eventually did. And my second option was Notre Dame. So I went to Notre Dame, and then they asked, "Okay, we got Black History. Do you want to take it?" And I'm like, "Oh, excited. Oh, I'm going to do Black History when I go to school." I go to I get in Notre Dame, and I'm in the classroom. Now you have to understand, during that time, the history that was going on was about Richard Nixon, Watergate, and all that kind of stuff going on. And that's what I was learning at the time in school.
Right.
And I
Right.
found it very, very boring. But I wanted to take this Black history.
Right.
I get in there, I ain't learned nothing as far as I'm concerned. The only thing they touched on was Haile Selassie, which, you know, he was the emperor of, what was it, Ethiopia, whatever,
Right.
at that,
Right.
yeah. And it was Mao Zedong, well, maybe not pronouncing it right, Tung. And there was another person, I can't remember who it was. And I'm like, this is Black history? I mean,
Wow.
yeah. And it turned me off. Like, I shut
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Now, during that time, you have to understand there was civil rights unrest.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my pop was a cop,
Yeah.
and I was telling you about Chambersburg, right? Okay.
Yes.
So 2 blocks behind us going over it, there was a high school. They only had one high school in Trenton, New Jersey, in Trenton itself. They have high schools in the suburbs, but one in Trenton in the city, and it was called Trenton High, right? So Trenton High, the side of Trenton High, one side faced Chambersburg, and the other side faced towards my area, my street, my area. So at that time, you had blacks and you had whites. The blacks would be on one side that went to Trenton High, whites were on the other. They did not mingle. But and then we had the afro, you had
Yeah.
women's
Yeah.
lib and all this. So when I went to Notre Dame, like, we want to wear afros. And, at that time, people was kind of like shunning the old school, the OGs was like, I don't know about these, this afro's kind of militant. But I wouldn't cut my hair anyway, and I wore a natural afro. There was no unrest in Notre Dame. Everybody flowed like they should flow.
Oh, okay.
Everybody
Okay.
was
Okay.
in Notre. I didn't receive no outward prejudice, but it was interesting because there's some of the Caucasian people that were in my class we are friends now, but we wasn't like buds.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
We were classmates. So I never experienced outward racism until actually once I became a nurse. I
Oh.
remember one time working in I had a little job. I must have been like 13 or something. I worked down at City Hall with Jenny Stubblesville. She was like a councilwoman. She had, I forget what she did, but she was important.
Right.
And I was leaving, coming down the steps of City Hall, and there was a car going by, and there was some Caucasian guys, and they kind of beckoned me over. And I didn't get close to the car, but just close enough to hear what they were saying. So they said to me, "Oh, can you tell me where the City Hall is?" And I'm like, "Where? City Hall's right here behind me." "Well, can you tell me where the post office is?" I said, "Oh, there, directly across from City Hall's post office." And they said to me, and this is the first time I ever received something like this from somebody. He said, "Oh, you're a smart nigger, aren't you?" And then drove off. And I was like, wow.
Ooh.
And then as a little girl, I loved to dance. I love music. I love dancing. So my mom put me in dancing school. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go to dancing school, and she took me to the Conservatory of Music, which is also in Trenton. And I didn't know this, but I heard her talking. So I remember to this day.
Yeah.
I remember being in the room with the children, and the lady, instead of moving my foot with her hand, she kind of kicked my foot. My mom took me out, but I didn't understand all that.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this:
Mhm.
if I may, did you ever, like your father being the first black cop, could he arrest white people?
No, I'm quite sure he did, but he was highly, highly respected. Highly. Oh, he did, because I remember going to. Well, first of all, he was a juvenile detective. When I was a little girl, I went down to the precinct. Now, they had two precincts. They had precinct 1, precinct 2, and he was at the one, I believe, in off of Broad Street. But anyway, he was a jailer. He was the person that when they brought him in, okay, he took him and put him in the cell. Now that's what I seen him do. And then later he took tests and he became a juvenile detective. When he became a juvenile detective, he was assigned with another officer. So there was two of them together.
So he never really was a police officer that arrested people.
Well, he did arrest because he used to walk the beat.
Oh, he did walk the
And
beat? Okay.
yeah, he used to walk the beat. And people knew that if he told them, he said, look, y'all, I'm going to give you a few minutes. Y'all need to move, disperse. When I come back, you better not be here, because if there's a problem, you're gonna, you're gonna go to
Yeah,
jail.
because sometimes what they do with black people in them positions is they make them be the ones against other black people.
I know, but
Yeah.
I didn't never.
You never felt that. Yeah.
I never felt that. And then like him and the officer worked together and stuff like that. So I'm quite sure he did at one time. I know he was in a high speed chase when some gangsters had came in Trenton, and the police were doing a high speed chase, and he was a part of that. I remember that. And then there's documentation about I have paperwork when he retired. The newspaper Trent Times Trentonian came to interview him, and he talks about the chase that he had. And he was highly respected. Everybody knew him. And what was interesting, people knew me and I didn't know them.
Yeah,
and then
I
as
got
far
you.
as like that's Bill Winston's story. Don't be messing with her, and don't be, talking to her, and
Yeah.
so on and so
Let
forth.
me ask you this: Does Trenton have a riot in its history? Detroit had a riot in '67.
All right.
Do you know
I
if
don't
Trenton ever having a riot?
no, I don't remember it having a riot, but I remember policemen, my pop was set out because I think one time the Ku Klux Klan came to Trenton doing this civil rights thing back in the 60s. And it was down to Duck Island. Duck Island was considered South Trenton by the Delaware. And they sent all the police officers down there to make sure there was no issues, no problems.
Right.
Now, I don't remember any riots.
You remember a riot? Okay.
I don't remember any riots happening. Okay, but they were always ready for it just in case.
Yeah, let me ask you this. Growing up like you did, and knowing the white people live not far, was that neighborhood better than black neighborhood? And you, at some point, you thought white people were better than black people?
No, I never thought that. I never thought white people was better than
black
people.
I
never thought that. I thought we were all, because that's the way I was raised. Matter of fact, with one of my friends, she was a Caucasian young lady, and her mom was having some difficulties. She had Barbara, she had a brother named Tom and John, and her mom was absolutely gorgeous. But Barbara was like in and out of school, and we had found out that Barbara was at an orphanage because I guess her mom couldn't take care of her for whatever reason. Then she went back to her mom. But I came home and I told my mother, and my mom called her mom, talked to her, and Barbara came and stayed with us. She was going to live with us. My mom went and got her uniforms and everything. And then her mom got out of the situation, and then Barbara went back with her mother.
Let me ask you this. Do you know where the enslavement is in your family? The plantation down south?
Okay. From what I was told, my family was not enslaved. That's what I was told. But now there's a but. Going back in history from my I guess great aunt Bertha, she told a story. I read this story that it goes back to 1745, and there was a gentleman named William Hart and Sarah Mitchell. Sarah Mitchell was supposedly came from the British West Indies, San Salvador, Bahamas. I was also told that when Columbus met the Indians in the Bahamas, he met our family. We were the Indians. We were the people. Okay, really? I guess not literally, but this is what I was told.
Okay, hold on. Let me stop you there. When you say you was told this, you was sitting around the dinner table, and because the reason why I asked this is because how do people address this with their elders? Some people say I need to talk to my mom and them. How were you told this, and what would you suggest people who want to ask the question, how did they do it?
Well, this wasn't discussed at the table. This was found in research. So what happened was my grandfather's daughter, her name was Doris Williams. Aunt Doris was the enthusiast with taking pictures, and she was documenting history as through her lifetime. So, and my dad, my grandfather, I call him my dad, he was also writing stuff down. So what happened was when she passed, my sister had acquired all this information, and we were talking about it. And I said, I wish I had some of that. She said, "Well, you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I said, I got my truck. So my son and we went to the house. She had a garage full of files, files, pictures, files, boxes. So I was so excited. It takes us 6 hours to get back from Buffalo to Pennsylvania, right? I was up all night reading this stuff. And what happened was Aunt Bertha, who was this great great aunt of mine, she turned 100, and they did like a what do you call it? An interview of her, and she had documentation about our family. That's how I found out about William Hart and Sarah Mitchell. They had like 13 kids. There was 13 kids, and one of the daughters was named Frances.
Okay, let me stop you there.
Okay.
William Hart is a white guy, black guy. What is he?
William Hart was Scottish, from Scotland, and Sarah Mitchell was supposed to be. Now, this is what she wrote. She was a princess, and she said that she was Cherokee. So I'm looking at this stuff, right, and I'm like, well, she might have been Indian, but I don't think she was Cherokee, because you're looking at the Bahamas. They have their own Indians over there, the Lucatans or something, Lucatans, and there's another group. I got you. So I think what she was saying when she threw the Cherokee in, it was meaning she was Indian,
right?
Okay. Right. So anyway, in reading that, and then they had this daughter named Frances. Now Frances, and this is another thing. So when I looked into William Hart and Sarah Mitchell, I can't find a union there as far as matrimony. Okay. So, but she was his daughter, according to what I'm reading. And her name was Frances Fargus. She married a Farguson, Farquharson, something like that.
All right.
So when I went and looked, I'm like, okay, so Frances married this Farguson.
Oh, let me stop you there. You went where to look?
Oh, the paperwork that Aunt Bertha had. You remember she had wrote all this information.
Okay, yeah,
so I'm reading it, right? Okay. Right. So it says that she married this Farguson guy. So I go to look it up, and I see there's a plantation Farguson. So I'm like, okay. So did she marry one of the plantation owner, one of the children, or uncle, or whatever? That part I haven't figured out yet. I'm still doing research. And then her name come up as Crowley. So I'm like, now wait a minute, I'm totally confused, because when you go on Ancestor, different little things come up. You got to do due diligence in your research. So she became a Crowley, and I guess she married him, and then they had a daughter. Okay. That daughter married a guy named William Smith. Now, William Smith, he was Irish. Farguson was Scottish, and so was Hart. So now we're into John. His name was John Smith.
Okay, let me stop you there. Is this still on the island, or is this that they've gotten to America at this point?
I have no idea, because there's no documentation telling me anything as far as that.
Okay.
So yeah. So anyway, she marries John Smith. Now, oh wait a minute, I missed the important thing. Can I move back up? Going back to William Hart. William Hart was knighted by King George III. So he was knighted by him. So he was a knight. He was knighted by him. So his name was Sir William Hart. Okay, so
he marries a black woman, an Indian woman.
And he marries a black woman. Now the thing is, I don't know if there was actual matrimony.
I got you. Yeah, you said
Okay.
that, right? I got you.
Uh-huh. I'm not sure because when I look, I still have there's a lot of stuff I got to go through. But from what I have read, and if it's him, he had a wife over in Scotland somewhere. So this is where I'm like, I don't know where the dynamics are in that.
I
But
got you.
so moving down to John Smith, he was a jailer for Queen Victoria. Okay. And then he had married, remember, he married Francis's daughter. Their daughter married a mulatto his name is Colonel Ulysses Burton, and he was a Civil War vet. Okay, so he fought in the Civil War. Then
For the North.
for the North, I think he was a Confederate soldier.
No, that's for the South then.
Yeah, I think he was because it was hey, that's what it was at that time.
Okay, so now
So
what you're saying is now this woman marries a white guy,
he was mulatto.
mulatto.
Yeah, he
So
was mulatto.
so man, hold on. So what we might think is as a mulatto meant that he was black and white,
Right,
and he fought for slavery. Is
right.
what you might be is what you telling me.
Yeah, but they ain't had no choice. Because some of them was made to, and I don't know all the history about Ulysses because, like I said, this it takes a lot of work, and you have to do due diligence, and you got to go over here, you got to search over there, and
Yeah,
then people die, their names changed, and there's a lot. So
I got you.
I'm still doing research because I his name had came up in my feed and I was like, I don't know what his first name because Aunt Bertha didn't put his name in there. She just said Colonel Burton. So from that there was another daughter born, and then it goes into the Giles, Guilds/Giles, the Giles. So and then that's where my lineage, my grandmother and everybody comes from. But then this is deep too because I just recently found out as yesterday that the Giles, Servina, she was my grandmother, and she had it had Giles, and then it had what was the other name? Um, oh, it was Giles, and the children's was named Ray Giles. And when I was doing my research, I found that Ray Giles' father, okay, he actually came for what is it, Bordeaux, France. So my lineage, when I was looking at his stuff, it goes back to even further, 1690 goes back to him, and he was a Navy veteran, a soldier. Now I don't know if he got killed over there or what, but he was French. He was born in France, and but I did not know that he wasn't the other children's father because, like I said, it was Giles, and then she remarried. She remarried, and then the
I
name
got you.
changed and stuff like that. And
I
that's
got
where, and he's like, I don't know, my sixth grandfather or whatever. But
I
it
got
goes
you.
down, and I get blown away because here's another veteran that I didn't even know about. He was in the Navy, and then you have my Ulysses Burton, he was a soldier, and then you had Prince William Whipple.
Now, when you say she wrote this down, what did she write it in? Some kind of notebook? And is it on? I mean, because what you're talking about, how old is these papers, you think?
The paper was it was handwritten.
Can
Okay.
you read it legibly? Is it
I
cursive? Is
Yeah,
it
you can read it legibly, and I was looking for it and I can't find it right now. It might be because I had so much information. I had to put it in storage because I had no place to put it here. I have some in my storage here and I put it in storage, but I have a handwritten paper that she wrote out, and I just copied it from there. And it goes all the way down to the Giles, and then it starts naming the mother and all the siblings. And then of course my grandmother is part of that. Because
But
her
but
last name was White.
what you showed me is loose paper. It was just loose sheets
Well,
of
I
paper.
was showing you papers saying that it was handwritten. That's all I'm saying. I
That's
don't
what I'm
have it
saying.
on
But
me.
it's loose
Yeah.
sheets of paper. It wasn't even in the notebook.
No, it wasn't in a notebook. It was on a piece of paper that she wrote it. And I believe she put that information in the newspaper too. Because, like I said, she was 100 years old. And what was interesting, in 1923, okay, she did Dunsons because they became Dunsons. They were the Giles, they became Dunsons. They rode on the float for Columbus Day parade in 1923, that they were descendants from the Indians that Columbus had met when he went to San Salvador, Bahamas. And it was verified by the mayor at the time, and his name is on that piece of paper also.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm telling you, I just get blown away. And then finding out 2 weeks ago that, from the Society of the First African American Families, that we were one of the first African families of descendants that fought in the Revolutionary War. And
Okay,
that just,
we're gonna go into that. So let me
yeah,
ask you this. So
yes.
why does this interest you?
Because, I I never liked history, but this here I'm just fascinated by. I'm just when I read all this stuff, I was just fascinated. It makes me a seeker. I want to know about my lineage and my family, because black people don't have an identity sometimes of knowing where they came from. They don't know the history.
I
And
got
what's
you.
really and what's really interesting, I'm old school, right? So, and I did this with my own children. I said, what goes on in the house stays here. And they had to do that back in slavery time. If they knew something, they had to keep it to themselves or within the
Right, right,
family.
right.
Because if they could say anything that could be like, I'm going outside, and they could get beat, they could get killed or whatever. So that information was passed down. And a lot of people's family, they have really good records. And what I find kind of upsetting is that when you tell certain people about their history, they're not interested. Because we have
Oh,
that
I see what you're
mentality.
saying.
We
Yeah,
have a
yeah.
mentality that we have traits. We have traits that are passed down. Traits, or like, for instance, you might like Chinese food or something. That could be a trait, that's something that's in your DNA, but you don't even know it. You
Yeah.
like it, and then you find out a certain culture, da 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 da. Because I did that with myself. I found out with myself. So,
Well, let me stop you there. So you think there's a trait that you like that's passed down?
there
Something to
is,
eat?
yeah. I'm gonna tell you why. I love Asian food, right? Love Asian food. So I have two grandkids. The first one is a male. The second one is his little sister. So I'm looking. Well, let me go back. Let me go back even further. My son, when he was little, he's fair skinned. And a gentleman would say, this gentleman came up to me. He says, "Oh, he looks just like you." And a lot of people don't see that because he's way lighter than I am. So he says, he's have Asian in him. And I'm like, no, not no, no, he's black. No. So when he had kids, I'm looking at Jaden. I'm like, God, Jaden, you look. I'm saying to myself, this baby look Asian, right? And then when his sister was born, I'm looking at her, and there's a picture. She's just like a little Asian baby doll, right? Come to find out, I got Philippine in my bloodline. Now,
Oh, really?
who was it? I don't know. And
Okay.
hypothetically, I said to my son, I said, "Oh, I guess the reason why I love Chinese food or Asian food, I got Filipino in me." So my
I
son
got
said,
you.
"Oh,"
I got
so
you.
my son said, "Oh, mom, like that." And then
Yeah.
I'm like, "Don't oh mommy," because if you go on Ancestry, they have DNA traits, and they'll ask you in Ancestry, "Do you like asparagus? Do you have a cleft chin? Do you have does your earlobes attached to your
Yeah.
face?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Because those are traits of certain
I
cultures.
got you. I got
So
you. I
getting
got
back to this, what I'm finding out with us black folks, sometimes, not everybody, But we have always been told, the Caucasians don't let us do this. The Caucasians don't let us do that. Da 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 da. And we've been oppressed individuals, depressed individuals. And then what upsets me is when you have an opportunity to find out about your culture, even better than that, direct culture to you, to your bloodline. And I'm saying to you, do you want to be a part of this? Nobody wants to participate. Nobody wants to
I
hear
got you.
about it.
I
So
got you.
don't sit here and say the white man, because you still unknowingly have a oppression in that brain that, well, that doesn't enter me. That happened a long time ago. I have friends
I
that
got
say,
you.
yeah,
I wanna divert just to and divert back.
okay, okay.
Christopher Columbus. You
Mm-hmm.
said they were on the boat, but he's known to be where he had, he raped women and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard
Mm-hmm.
stories like that? In any of your documents, something like
No.
that?
No, no. But I just know what I heard was he met the Indians in San Salvador, Bahamas. That was it. There was no other documentation
No other documents.
about any kind of interaction with them.
Okay,
And yeah,
okay. Let me ask you this. Now, when we
mhm,
talk, and I think I got this right, you talked about William Whipple. You mentioned that at the beginning. Let's
right.
go into that story.
Okay. So as I was telling you, my uncle back in the 90s, um, when when his sister passed, it was a whole lot of us that were at the funeral. So we're having breakfast, and my uncle, he knows the story about Ulysses. Well, he doesn't know the search, this whole story, but what he had told us about William Whipple. I keep saying Whipple, right? That he was a prince, and that was it. That he was in our family. I didn't know nothing else, nothing. So what I did is I came back and I researched William Whipple, and I found that he was enslaved. He was a prince, and
You
that
keep saying Prince, a prince
he
from
was a prince from Ghana. Okay, he was a prince from Ghana. His father was a king, and the mother was a queen. Obviously, to have a
oh,
prince.
okay.
That's the way I took. He said we came from royalty, but he didn't have any information. That's all that was said. So I did my due diligence and I did some research back in the 90s. And what I found out was that he was on the boat with George Washington in Trenton, New Jersey, and that he crossed the Delaware with Washington. He was an icebreaker because it was during the winter. They were, doing the Revolutionary War. It was all this ice, and as they were rowing, he was breaking the ice and stuff so they could get past. When I read this, I had read that he was with George Washington. So when one of the ladies from the museum contacted me about being an honoree for, he was being honored for being this patriotic soldier, she contacted me and another individual in the family. And I went back and I wanted to refresh my memory about him.
Okay, let me stop
And
you there. Let me stop you
okay,
there. Okay, you knew this story, and then all of a sudden you get a phone call. I mean, sometime thereafter,
oh,
later saying, "Hey, we validated this story," and you're like, "Oh, what he told me was true. I didn't think you ever doubted him, but what was true?" And now you get a phone call
well, I
to
got an email.
well,
So
yeah,
well, I didn't
but
even get.
in the
Wait a minute,
event,
I hadn't even get. I got an email. I joined Ancestry in 2015, and I kept the membership for a while, and then I let the membership go. But what Ancestry was nice is you can go back in there and you can read, your new DNA results that come up because it gets more advanced and gets you closer to where you actually came from, you know. And so there was a message in there from I think it was her name was Renee, and I'm reading this, and she's like, "Oh, we found out da 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 da. You're one of the ancestors to Prince William Whipple. We're doing this honoring his legacy on May 9th. We would like for you to come, yada yada yada." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm so excited." And I'm like,
I
"Wait a
can't
minute, this for real?"
imagine.
Yeah, I was excited. Now check this out. So I copied the email and I sent it to family members. And I send it to, like, for instance, I might send it to my cousin, but I also send it to her father to make sure she got it, so on and so forth. So I send it all over to everybody. And I told them, I said, now don't come asking me nothing because I don't know nothing. I only know as much as what is in this letter. And as the documentation comes, I will forward it. So that's what I did. But you see that I was the only one there. One person was interested in coming, but then she couldn't come. Then one of my other members said, "Oh, wow." And everybody was talking about it, but nobody's saying anything.
Yeah. Okay,
So
that happened. Yeah,
my one son, he was like, "Mom, I'm not sure because I'm going to be in the Dominican for a wedding." Okay. Then my other son, he was like, he thought it was in June, and then the other one couldn't come. So I'm
yeah.
like,
So you
okay.
went. So you
So
went.
I
Yeah,
went by myself. So
yeah.
what Renee had put in there, she says, he's going to be awarded like a certificate with his number on it, his military information, and you're going to get a medal. So you need to decide who in your family is going to receive the medal. And if you do that and other people want a medal, they can purchase it. I'm like, no problem. So one of my family members called and she says, "Are you going?" I said, "Well, it's a little early yet, but I want to go." I put it like
Where
that.
was it? Where was it?
Where was the
It
function?
yes.
The function was at the Society of the First American Families of English America, and it was at the Museum of the American Revolution in February.
Yes,
February
I
in
got you. I got
Philadelphia.
you. I
May
got you.
9th. So I said, I let her know that I was going to go. I'm like, "Are you going to go?" She said, "Well, I can't go." So I was the only one that went. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah,
so excited about it. And so what I know about him, he was born in, hold on for a minute now, 1750, and he passed in 1796. He was this is how I was told the story. He was from Ghana. His father he was a prince, so we're assuming that his father was a king and there's a queen. He had a brother that had been sent to America for education, older brother. So he came back, and when he came back to Africa, the father said, "Okay, everything went well. I think I'm going to send William." Now his name wasn't William at the time. I forget. I'm not sure if I know his name. His real African name. So he said, "Well, I'm going to send you." So he sends him and another young man to to America to get education. And what I understand was there was somebody that I don't know exactly, but some there was some mistruths there. Somebody gathered him and didn't do what he was supposed to do. I guess the person that was taking him took him and sold him into slavery. He
Oh
was
my
in
God.
he was into let me see, I got little notes written here if I can see them. It says the person that brought him over wasn't a very nice person, and they sent him to Baltimore. But I think he also went to one of the Caribbean islands, but he wind up in Baltimore, and he was enslaved. But what happened was William Hipple, there's a General William Hipple, Caucasian man, that was in the military, of course, and he's the one that bought William. And when the war broke out, he told William, "If you fight for us, you will receive your freedom." And so William did that. And
Us being the South, evidently.
yes, well, this is Revolutionary
Oh,
War.
revolutionary.
This
I'm
is,
sorry.
yeah,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Revolutionary War. Yeah. So he gave him his freedom. He fought in the Revolutionary War. And then William Hipple, the general, he was from Portsmouth, Massachusetts. And that's where William settled. Prince William settled, and he married a free slave. Her name was Diana. And Diana was also there's things with her that she does. She was fighting for women's rights, or black women or whatever. But that was her thing that she was doing, and that's where he was. And William, there's other things that William Whipple had done also, as far as his legacy. And he died in 1796.
Now, okay. So everybody, and make sure I'm clear. Let's say he's on your dad's side of the family, and the other people that you talked about earlier is on your mother's side of the family. Because how do those two mix?
Well, the way I'm looking at it, the way I see it, because I was looking at it, I think he's on my mother's side
Okay.
of the family.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like the sixth great granddaughter or whatever that's under him, something like that. Because from what I seen, I'm like a direct descendant. I'm like a great great granddaughter.
Yes, I see.
Yes.
Let's go back before we close out,
Okay.
and talk about this. For those who don't know, what happened was George Washington was crossing the Delaware River.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, I think they were trying to fight whatever they were fighting, and then the militia. And that's the reason why they were trying to cross the Delaware, but it was all this ice. And then William, he was breaking the ice, and then he did some other things. There's so much.
See, because we know that. I mean, I don't, and I should. I'm gonna investigate, but we know of him on that boat. We see that's a famous picture.
But let me tell you about that picture, okay? When I read about him in the 90s, what I read, he crossed the Delaware with George Washington, and that's what I was told by my family. When I went back to read it this time, if there's such a word as debulking stuff, it was debulked, because they were saying, well, the picture was painted of George Washington in the 1800s by this artist, and we really don't know if he was really in there or not, but they put him in because he was the manservant to General William Whipple. So
was Whipple on that boat too?
Whipple was on that boat too.
Oh, I got you.
So they're trying to say that he wasn't there. And I'm like, from what I know, he was on that boat. Why would you just put him in there? And then another artist at a later time, a little after that, painted a picture also, and they claimed the same thing. But that doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, he was on the boat.
I got you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's famous in its own right.
Yes,
now,
it is.
As we go from that, there's William Whipple, who was a very rich guy in Philadelphia.
Oh, now that I don't know.
You don't know that. I talk about a William Whipple in my book, who was a very very rich guy in Philadelphia.
And what year was he born?
This is 1800s. I can't find the fact offhand.
He could be a descendant.
Yeah, he could be a descendant.
Yeah, because William was born 1750.
Yeah, William Whipple was a famous guy in Philadelphia. But so now, are you thinking of writing a book? What? Of all this.
Let me tell you something. Coming from the Giles family, because that's where I was telling you about Juan Giles married my grandmother, that he was a Navy vet, right? And so much information, and I was thinking about that. I was like, wow, because I have from Juan Giles, his son Ray, they called him Ducky. That was his nickname. One of the children was a journalist out of Philadelphia. He wrote all kinds of stories and journals and stuff. And what he would do is he would mail it to my aunt, Mary, who was Doris's sister. And I was thinking about, I said, I got all this documentation from him that he wrote. Now, I don't know if he was writing this stuff for a company that he worked for, because I have to do more investigation on him. But I would love to take his material and have it published. I would love to do that. And then also publish about William Juan Giles, Ulysses Burton, and then I have family members that, like I said, my grandfather, my aunt, that contribute to Black history.
Yeah.
And then I have brothers and uncles and first cousins that's been in the military. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
interesting.
Right.
I would love
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
That's
people
something.
need to know
Yeah.
about our history. And I love history. And then the truth is coming out. God says, what you do in the dark will be revealed in the light, and the
Yeah.
truth will come out. And now you see stuff on YouTube about
Yeah.
Black history, about the Black Bible, the Ethiopian Bible, because the stuff
Yeah.
taken out of the King James.
Yeah.
There's something we need to know, and they need to put this stuff in school and tell the truth, because the secret is out. You think nobody's watching you, nobody sees what you're doing. God sees, and He knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's going to come out. Now, look, the truth is all coming out now.
Yeah, it is. And
And
so
people,
you doing and you're searching your family with the rich history that it has. That's a beautiful thing. I gotta ask you this question: is there anything that I have not asked you? Something that want to say, tell? I know you, in terms of the family, some story. Is there trauma in the family back then? Do you have a great uncle that
I
was
don't
lynched?
have
Any of that kind of thing?
I don't have anything, because all the old, as we said, the old heads have passed on.
Yeah,
So my generation now, we're the boomers. Now we are the elders
yeah, yeah,
now. And I only know what I was told or what I read.
yeah,
And that's it. And I'm quite sure there was traumas and stuff
yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah,
family.
yeah.
I'm
Sure.
finding out some secrets.
Yeah,
I'm finding out some stuff. I'm like, okay, because
yeah,
there's one family member I'm finding out. I'm like, well, who is this person? And then I'm finding out, who is this? And then I'm like, she's a daughter. She's
yeah,
a daughter. Well, I don't see that last name nowhere
yeah,
in the
yeah. The
in
rest.
the lane there.
Yeah,
So
I got you.
I
Well,
don't
hey
know of
everybody,
any.
this is what we do at Strong Inspirations, because what y'all got out of all this beautiful history and her family are unique stories of going back to the islands and hooking up with the soldier from Scotland, and then you
Mm-hmm.
got the William Whipple
Oh, give me,
story and so much more. So everybody, this is what, like I say, this is what I do, and
Mhm.
she took it so eloquently too,
Oh, thank you.
eagerly. It was beautiful. I'm gonna cut out the 55 born year part. We cut that part out. We don't need to tell everybody that, and so on and so forth.
Thank you.
That's a storyline. And but then also, so hit the subscribe button, my friends. Hit the like button. I know you loved it. Hit the notifications bell. Tell somebody about Strong Inspiration. Don't keep it to yourself.
That's
And
right.
then go to her. Do you have a website? I mean, you're not trying to publish, and at this point, it just
I
okay.
don't have anything yet.
Yeah,
I'm
nothing
still
like that. But
working.
this is what she's doing on a personal note. And then
Mm-hmm.
go to my website, everybody. Watch my movie on Amazon. Get you a copy of my book on businessintheblack.net. Also, where you can find out where I'm speaking. Because I forgot to mention, I'm having a festival in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, July 10, 11, 12. It's an
Oh,
all
wait, let
black
me.
town founded in 1887. And
Okay.
we putting that together. All that will be on my website and on the website mountainbayou.museum.org. So that's good stuff. And to you, my sister, I say this, and I mean this with all sincerity. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind, keep finding that history. There's some more that you know you want to find, the answer to clues, so on and so forth. And it's become a labor of love for you
Yes, yes, I
because
love it.
somehow you sat at the table and people told you things that was good that they did, and it piqued your interest. And now, many years later, you're following through on it, and now you're sharing it with us on the show. And I'm sure that there's more sharing that you will do. And
Yes,
then
yes.
I was at that function where you got that award. I stood
Mhm.
up and applauded you when you got that
Oh,
medal.
thank you.
Because I had
Thank
met
you.
you and I said, hey, she's sitting at the table with me. I'm one of them. I stood up
Oh,
when you got the medal. So thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
With that, I'll
Thank
say
you.
appreciate doing this. Bye bye. We out.
Bye. Thank you.